Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Hobin, and this is Wanting a Better America, something that I think a large part of us can get behind. The goal of this podcast is to dissect both parties in this upcoming election, the state of our country, and the possible future. And to you, the audience at home, I don't want you to get confused. This is not just an extended episode of Focal Point. As I assure you, this podcast will be covering a broad range of ideas and topics in a single episode. We won't hold punches, and you may get offended. These are truths, but you'll be getting facts along with my opinion. And, with enough headroom out of the way, let's talk a little about politics. As we stand as a house divided, it seems that the media and each major political party will deem the other side as either a snowflake radical far-left liberal socialist or a racist bigot conservative radical right fascist. Again, we are speaking in terms of generals here. There is, of course, the loud, silent majority on both sides of this twisted fence. But let's for a moment break down these ideas and get past the crest of an ideology, which simply means all those adjectives and nouns that I just mentioned are long ways for each side to say that the other person is everything I hate and I'm afraid of. And for transparency's sake, for this whole podcast, when I use definitions, I'll be using the Oxford Dictionary for all my definitions. Socialism can be defined as a set of political and economic theories based on a belief that everyone has an equal right to the share of a country's wealth and that the government should own the country and the main industries. And fascism is an extreme right-wing political system or attitude that is in favor of a strong central government aggressively promoting your own country or race above others, and that does not allow for any opposition. Conservative, opposed to great or sudden social change, showing that you prefer traditional styles and values. And liberal being wanting or allowing a lot of political and economic freedom and supporting steady social, political, or religious change. The heart and soul of this country, according to each major news outlet, is what side you want to go on. Do you want change, or do you want to keep things the same? The ideas of the Republicans and Democrats are born between these words. The media uses those words to scare you. We'll cover the idea of fascism and socialism in just a minute. But first, I want to give you an insight on the easier elephant in the room, the idea of staying static versus dynamic. A large part of this country believes that we need to stay true to the beliefs this country was founded on, and I'm going to throw a big asterisk on that. The ideas they want to stay sacred are country, family, and religion. All good ideas on the surface to a conservative. It's been that way forever. Why change? These people are trying to change this country. What if they try to rename Christmas, get rid of the 4th of July, make the heroes I grew up reading about dulled and corrupted? And then you have the opposite side, who want to change for the better. The Declaration of Independence says that each person is entitled to their own pursuit of happiness. And if this is a free country, why can't the same sex marry each other? Maybe we should rethink the idea of industrialism as we are hurting the planet. Why are we idolizing people who own slaves? A flag that represents racism, that being the Confederate flag. Why not defund the police and invest money into education? And you may disagree with me and never admit to this, but if you believe those ideas, I'm not calling you wrong, but to believe those ideas, your actions scream someone who is once again afraid. And that's okay. It's good to be afraid. Fear is a human and animal instinct. You're human. I am human. And I am also afraid. I'm afraid that we as a society will give in to fear. There's a classic quote from an old movie. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. And if you ask me, I feel we're already the third step in for a large part of our country. The Trump supporters are scared their freedom and heritage is going to be erased. They are afraid of change as they probably have lived in a bubble their whole lives. And the Biden supporters are afraid that we won't change as a country, that systemic racism, the inability to escape the poverty line, and have free health care is a future that they will never have. So both sides get angry at each other, screaming and not listening, and shouting names, demonizing the other party, and this leads to hatred. Hatred which is passed down to children and children's children's. and then they suffer because they didn't learn how to deal with fear. And you can call me wrong all you want and say you are not afraid, and we may just disagree, but that's okay. And this leads to my next point: how each side has gotten to a point where the ideas of fascism and socialism have now bled into our culture. I stated earlier that an extreme right-wing political system or attitude that is in favor of a strong central government aggressively promoting your own country or race above others, and that does not allow any opposition, is how fascism is defined. And if we are basing it off on definitions solely, Trump is a fascist. And if you are part of that big majority that says "Make America Great Again" and proclaiming that you are for your country and believe that the other side should not be around, then you are a fascist. Back in World War II Germany, one of Adolf Hitler's main goals was to bring back the glory of Germany. He censored the media, silenced people who opposed him, and scapegoated not just the Jews, but gypsies, homosexuals, and disabled people. And although the President of the United States isn't sending people to die in concentration camps, he has had people in his administration violate people's First Amendment rights, scapegoated China, the Democrats, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and a whole slew of other people. And earlier I said a set of political and economic theories based on the belief that everyone has an equal right to a share of a country's wealth and the government should own and control the main industries is how you define socialism, which, if you believe that everyone should get free healthcare and that the wealth should be split between everyone, you are a socialist by base definition. And the most part, every time socialism has been attempted, it has failed. That's why there are only a handful of countries practicing socialism. But the thing there is, people don't have full freedom. But I want to take a step back, because no current or past ideology has been perfect. Capitalism, communism, socialism, fascism, democracy, a republic, etc. They all have ideas that work well in theory, but collapse. Communism, the idea that there should be not a ruling power and wealth is equal no matter what your profession, as everyone gets the means to live, but there is a ruling power which stifles any free choice. Socialism, a little bit different but similar. Everyone should get equal amounts and the government should distribute the land, however, most of the times the government is corrupted and taxes are through the roof. Fascism ties into nationalism, which could be a good thing, similar to Love Thy Brother and Heartland, but it leads to isolationism and a blind following. Not to mention a blind following to make your country better than all other countries, which we've all seen how that went with Italy and Germany back then. The system we have now gives everyone a voice, but based on where you live, your vote may not matter in the larger picture, as a popular vote doesn't always win. See 4 years ago. And it's even possible for the Electoral College to tie, where only about a few hundred elected officials of the Electoral College will decide who actually becomes the next leader. Every idea is flawed, some more than others. And if you ask me, I think, again, going back to those ideas, I think like free healthcare should be a thing. Police should not be abolished but defunded, and more money should be put towards education. That we should empower the little guy to run his own business without a lot of government intervention. That if you are in a country that gave you freedom to empower yourself, you should use it. And that every 4 years, we should want a leader who looks to the people as a priority first rather than the rest of the world. And I try my best to understand why people feel different. Believe me, I do. This is what confuses me though, because I've seen this more times than I know what to deal with when it comes to healthcare. People who have started GoFundMe or donation boxes to help afford a funeral, a surgery, major medical issues that they just had a stream of bad luck with. And this has caused a lot of Americans to go bankrupt. Actually, it's leading to the majority of bankruptcies in our country. Like, how messed up is it that you could get medically ill one day or wind up in an accident that is not your fault, be in debt, and that you have to decide on whether to eat or put a house over your head, or for that matter, a roof over your head, how the saying goes. But even with that, it has to have its limits. Like, if you eat cheesecake every night and get fat and needed medical care because of self-inflicted neglect to take care of your body, maybe those extreme cases should be reviewed and those people shouldn't get a quick, easy pass. But then the case can be made for people in poverty who couldn't afford healthy food or an education or an uneducated child who picks up smoking and gets addicted at a young age and never stops once to quit. Things aren't easy. Nothing is ever black and white. As a country, we should look to help our fellow brothers and sisters before we help the rest of the world. But we should never turn a blind eye to people who are being oppressed. Like, let's take a time loop back to the year of the Berlin Airlift. Probably the biggest air mission that has ever taken place, as America partnered with England and France to save the people barricaded behind communist lines. I bet you a large part of the MAGA folks who preach America first were not wanting any part of that. They would say that it's a waste of taxpayer money, and why are we feeding East Berlin when people here are struggling to be fed? And both arguments could be made. Folks, we are going to take a quick rest here to go on a quick break, but when we get back, we'll be discussing the possible future, Trump rhetoric, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. You're listening to Wanting a Better America. My name is Joe Hobin. Hello everyone, welcome back. For those who have been living under a rock, we are in the middle of the worst pandemic of the 21st century so far. 32 million Americans are out of work, unemployment benefits are running out, and COVID-19 is running wild still across America. Where in just a short year, it has moved up on the list, being the 5th deadliest killer in America this year. Where the President of the United States says, it is what it is. Looming questions are now in the air as we head into the summer, and no one knows if schools are going to open, how to do so, and the average Joes like you and I are wondering right now, are we going to get some more assistance from the government to help us out during these hard times? Meanwhile, the country tears itself apart on the two sides of the fence on major issues that should be no-brainers. And we are 100 days from the presidential election where we will be deciding which old geezer will try to steer this burning ship called America, with many Americans wondering if their horse loses to jump ship. Folks, it is July 26th, and this year has slowed down for most of us, but it has been speeding right along. And the first half of the year has been crazy as it has been. We are building up to one hell of a finale. How many will die due to COVID? Currently, the estimates by year end is about 200,000, 250,000 people. Here's what baffles me though. Every other day, the press secretary and the president and Fox News, with these major conservative news outlets and the presidential party, cabinet I should say, Trump's administration, they don't mention all the deaths due to COVID. However, they'll blow up the amount of deaths happening in major cities across the country, while still saying that all lives matter. They say that the mortality rate in America surpasses the rest of the world, but they fail to mention that they are not using numbers for deaths by population rankings, but a different system which measures the amount of deaths from previous years and figuring out how many people died in America due to COVID effect by essentially finding the difference from year to year to get a percentage of a measure. And not all countries calculate their numbers based on this formula. They say that all lives matter at once again, and yet they are persistent to open America to quickly not listen to doctors' orders and to send thousands of Americans to their deaths. Because, and quoting Trump here, it is what it is. At this time, some protests, riots, and martial law lingers in major cities in America, which will definitely have impacts on those numbers going up. All while the president boasts on being the law and order president, as he enforces his secret police to take American citizens off the streets in unmarked vans. Now, here we don't support rioters, but we support peaceful protests. But if federal law enforcement don't respect the Constitution, this is what leads to anarchy, a situation in a country, an organization, etc., which there is no government order or control. But I don't want to get it twisted. These protests and riots are not anarchists. These people seek reform, change, accountability from a legal system. And can you blame them? Let's look at the facts. There have been many people innocently killed by the police, and the murderers still haven't faced justice. And the time it takes to change things and get laws passed takes forever, while these atrocities happen daily, non-stop. And when the large majority of people in the country believe that there should be police reform and accountability, the system has their feet cemented and plastered to the floor. I made a cold-hearted joke on social media a few months back, stating I want to see how bad things get, to see when the ruling class will actually start to change. Because let's be real, and this may sound dark to all of you listening at home, drastic events lead to quicker change. And I hear you typing away, asking, haven't we seen drastic times already? I don't think we have. I think everything we are living right now is the new normal. And we really need to see a lot of bloodshed and a complete collapse to get a better picture and better place. I don't support violence, but it's the truth. Imagine, for you will, a bunch of cops going rogue one day and just killing a lot of people. Say a good baker dozen or two. I guarantee you'll see some executive orders of police reform. Or imagine a group of protesters strapped up and bring AR-15s to a protest and start firing back on the people who are tear-gassing the innocent. And the leaders come out stating he was representing the First and Second Amendment rights as citizens, that being the leaders of the riots and militia that came there. Freedom of protest and having a well-regulated militia would be what he would be claiming. There are some new law passes there'll be some new law passes for sure. Which way that ball drops, well, that's for the courts and the people to decide. Will any of these scenarios happen? Probably not. In my opinion, you want to stop riots? Have a conversation with the protesters and rioters. Don't go in there and start tear gassing people. That doesn't help. It makes things worse. Picture this scenario. You and your significant other are in a fight, and the other is so mad that you don't listen, so they start setting the couch on fire, breaking dishes, and spray painting the walls. And you both own the house. It's split 50-50, so you just can't leave. If you decide to gas the house or attack them with batons, you won't solve anything, but probably get them more mad. So what do? It's simple. You go in the kitchen, grab some coffee or tea, put a little sugar in it, a little bit of creamer if you like that. You bring a chair into the living room, you sit down, and you ask them, I see you're mad, I see you're angry. Let's have a conversation. Breathe on this, and we will iron this out. Folks, unfortunately, that is all the time we have today. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment your thoughts. Please be safe and tell your loved ones you miss them and love them. You've been listening to Wanting a Better America, because I think we can all agree this country needs help. I love you all. Please be safe and considerate to your brothers and sisters, and treat everyone with respect and dignity. Until next time, my name is Joe Hobin, and you stay beautiful.